Welcome back. Sorry it's been so long that I've uploaded a video it's been a couple of weeks, but that still seems like a long time for me, given track of how many videos I was uploading. I was on, I think it was like 7 months of uploading every other day. But after the last couple of weeks and how I've been feeling and the music I've been listening to, I really wanted to have my hot take on Sleep Token and the kind of hidden messages that they input. So it's kind of a podcasty, music reviewy kind of thing. If you're new around here, this is a new video for me. This was a new concept as well as working on a previous concept. The trouble I found with doing the podcast was because I was doing it on my own, I was having to try and think of topics to discuss each week. And there's obviously, you got some podcasts that are running for, nearly 2 hours of just discussing with people. I'm on my own and I don't have that platform to just speak to other people about it. And in the music side of things, I don't really speak to a lot of other people about music to the degree that you see people talk about music. I listen to music, I appreciate it, and I kind of go on my own journey with it. Me and my partner do talk about it from time to time, but we have a very different... we listen to different things. However, Sleep Token has been one of those that we seem to find ourselves discussing more and more on recently. Ever since Even in Arcadia came out, they don't usually listen to albums. They've listened to it a hell of a lot more times than I have. I've only listened to the album properly once. Just sat there with my headphones or earbuds actually listening to it. With Sleep Token in particular, I've plucked out songs and they've kind of become their own playlist within themselves. But the thing that highlights to me more than anything about Sleep Token in particular is the fact of their lyricism and the way that they write their songs and they produce them. The messages that are hidden in plain sight. There's a lot of reasons why he obviously wants to be anonymous, and fuck you to the people that doxed him, and now a lot of people know who he is. And who, have an understanding of who some of the songs could be about. One of the messages that I get in particular is that the mental health or illness, whether that be chronic, terminal, physical, mental, don't have a face. The mask that he wears is to mask everything that he's going through. But behind that mask and what comes out of it is some of the most beautiful pieces of music that I've ever listened to. And there's a lot of people that hate it. And it kind of gripes me because there is this whole rage bait about hating music because it's popular. I don't personally listen to the chart music. I'm not going to deny that they're not talented. I'm just not going to listen to it because that's my sort of thing. Certain films, I'm not going to deny the artists of their work. Their work is good. If it's being recognised and some people isn't, there's a reason for that. Not everyone has the same makeup to produce things, and people work really hard and don't get anywhere with it, and that's not because they're not talented, it's because it's a very oversaturated industry. Look at me, trying to get into an industry that has got millions upon millions of people on the platform with millions and millions of subscribers. I'm on 10,000, most of them are a lot higher. But when those things do seep through the cracks and they generate a lot of popularity very quickly, it doesn't go unnoticed by anywhere around that community. Think about Imagine Dragons, that they were a really popular band when they first came out. But in reality, a lot of people started hating on him because of the direction they went in. Linkin Park, another prime example of how words and personal lives and everything else can bring Chester to do what he ended up doing. And you look at his music, you know, when Linkin Park first came out, especially with Hybrid Theory, it was such a completely different approach to the way music, especially heavier music, was produced. You had rap, you had hip hop, you had rock, you had metal, you had loads of different genres within there. It was genre breaking. That was the whole point of them. And then you had like Limp Bizkit doing the same thing, Korn going in a different direction, Slipknot being originally anonymous and just 9 guys in masks. But people hate what they don't understand. And if they choose not to understand it, then that's on them. There's a lot of people out there that one channel in particular that I've come across within the last couple of days that reviewed Even in Arcadia was the Needle Drop. That was a really long sentence to try and bring out. I don't know why. The Needle Drop reviewed the album, and his opinion felt very forced. And I think that's kind of the idea of him, is the fact that he rage baits his audience, and you can see because people like to listen to his rage bait. And one of the things he said was Sleep Token was metal for Disney adults. The line of work that I want to eventually go into, and the people that I work with, and the degree that I'm studying being that psychology, people are going to say, well, if you're triggered by it, then that's on you. But that, when you look deeper into Disney adults, Disney has no age range. It's the same when people judge people for buying Lego. It doesn't have an age range on it. I had an argument with a couple of people about, still buying Lego to this day, and it's like, who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares? But, one of my favourite movies to watch is Cars. And I still watch that film, and I still get the feelings that I get when I first watched it in the cinema with my mum. When I was 8 years old when that film came out, and it's going to be 20 years old next year. Still holds up. Still holds up to this day, which is really good. But we do things that are comforting to us, and people seem to find a issue with it. Same could be said with gaming. Same could be said with books and reading graphic novels. If you're finding the joy in things because of the world that you live in is shit out of those things, then what's the issue? If you find joy of them, even if you're the happiest man alive, what is the issue? It's almost painted across as jealousy that you can get away with it. It's not something that you get away with, it's just something that you just do. And I'm kind of digressed off topic here. TikTok seems to be full of this rage bait. People shouldn't game, people shouldn't read comic books, people shouldn't buy Lego, people shouldn't watch Disney films. Like, for fuck's sake. Who cares? No, I don't want to sit there and watch Coronation Street and EastEnders and be bored out of my fucking mind. That's what you want to do because that's what you enjoy? Fine. But don't judge others because of the things that you prefer not to do. Not that hard. People listen to Sleep Token and bands like that because they identify with their music and they relate to their music. And the amount of undertones of mental health and chronic illnesses and things like that are painted within the lyrics is too much to ignore. Sometimes when I want to listen to Take Me Back to Eden as a song, I listen to Rain because it progresses into Take Me Back to Eden as if it's a two-part of a song. You know, or I listen to Atlantic, and speaking of Atlantic, it's something that me and my partner spoke about, of trying to read through the lyrics to decipher what the actual message is and what it's about. There are so many different possibilities and routes, and that's the thing. The music is relative because there's so much you could interpret from the music. Only the people that wrote it will know the true interpretation of the music, but it's all still relative, and I think that's a really powerful thing. Take Me Back to Eden could literally be just the law itself of take me back to the person called Eden or the Garden of Eden or things like that. But reality, like, take me back to Eden for me implies take me back to when I was most happy. Take me back to my paradise. And some people just don't get it. And I'm not going to force people to try and get it. This is my opinion, and some people could be against it. But I think that people really need to be careful about what they say on the internet because of how it influences other people. And I was a little bit triggered by that metal for Disney adults comment, because I don't think he quite realizes why there are so many of us. The world is a really shit place, and when you've been through trauma, you tend to regress back to the things that made you happy when you were a kid, because that is the only way you can find happiness. It's a broad statement, and some people could disagree with me, but that is what I interpret most from that, is if you find that you're happiest when you go and watch the films that made you happy as a kid, then that enough kind of needs to be said. I've been in a personal healing journey for the last couple of years, and I've noticed a lot of that within myself. I went through picking up different pieces of my childhood from when I was younger, like Go-Go Crazy Bones, or buying board games I used to play with my grandparents, or buying video games that I used to play when I was a kid. It goes past the point of nostalgic, more to the point of trying to emulate feelings, and kind of nostalgia does play a part in that. If I go back to something like Halo 3, it's because of the nostalgia. If I go for something that go back to playing Pokemon, it's a lot more than just nostalgia for me. I play Pokemon Emerald, for example. If I go back and play Pokemon Emerald, I'm going to feel a lot more raw emotion of how I used to sit there and play it as a kid than I did when just the feelings I got playing Halo 3 and it being an amazing game. Like, there's so many different approaches to it. There's so many different things with it. And I think it's hard to just dismiss that. And it's something that I want to explore later on down the line. And as far as listening to Sleep Token is concerned, and what people are going to call me a stan for it, I don't really care. They have helped me through some of the most difficult aspects of this journey that I've been on. I think since Even in Arcadia came out, Even in Arcadia itself, the title track is the one that I've listened to so many times because of the feeling it gives me and the way that it's empowering, but recognizing the battle ahead and the battles we face, and the recognition of even being in paradise, there was still death around us. It's interesting how metal music or rock music has always gotten a bit of a stigmatism for being of a satanic nature and bad for people to listen to. And something that I've thought about is a lot of these people that write these sort of prime example just came into my head. I went to a Fall Out Boy gig when it was the it was the Ultra Mega Awesome tour with Green Day and Weezer. And I can't remember the frontman's name, but he basically said he doesn't do a lot of talking on stage. Yeah, fair enough. It's a daunting thing to do. He is a prime example for me of the most silent of voices being the most loudest in the room. And with his music, it definitely reigns true on that. You know, with some of the things that reduces and the stories he tells. You know, Architects, another one where there is a lot of pain within those songs and a lot of, especially the Holy Hell album, where they had just lost one of their band members. Really bad at remembering names, so please bear with me. But he unfortunately passed away to cancer, and you could hear. I resonate with that album a lot. Within my own personal life, I resonate with that, with the Holy Hell album. Because when you look behind the screaming and see what it is for itself, you read the lyrics that are written. Obviously, it's difficult to understand at first, and to be fair, like when I first started listening to it, I was listening to a lot more to the music itself and how I feel and how it makes me feel, rather than what the song's actually about. Until I actually started learning to be able to listen to the heaviest of music like that and being able to understand the lyrics that are being sung or screamed, however you want to look at it. All these bands get a bad rap for being screaming music, but a lot of the time they are trying to project out some of their deepest, darkest of feelings and raw emotions and the pain that they suffer and deal with. A prime example is someone that I used to go to college with. She's been in a couple of bands herself, and she very much is one of those people. One of the quietest, one of the quietest, shyest people that I know. As soon as she gets on that microphone, you wouldn't be able to tell that. And what she's gone on to do, I'm really proud of her for. It's something that I've often tried to do myself. I used to write a lot of rap music. I used to write a lot of songs I didn't want to break into the UK rap scene. I wrote music alongside one of my friends because they were writing music as well and they were doing quite well with it. To a point where he ended up he ended up being on the same lineup as Professor Green for a charity event. And the reason why I'm not mentioning the names at all is because I'm keeping that side of me private. So if you happen to figure out who these people are, then kudos to you. You're a great stalker, but I'm not about that life. I'm not going to go and do any promoting of them because they're personal to me, if that makes sense. But within their stories and within their, they're two different completely styles of music. One's into heavy thrash metal, one's into UK rap, and I've wanted to combine the two myself and start writing my own music, but between everything else that I have going on, I just don't have the time. And I've got to take, if you're used to me by now, especially on these podcasts, I do a lot of different digressions here and there and completely go off topic to what the video was supposed to be about. But the case in point is that Sleep Token highlight a massive point of mental health, like anything, not all things that you go through have a face to it. Not everything that we experience has a face to it, and Sleep Token underlined that message really well. And I think that for me, I've picked up on a lot of what is spoken about within these songs. I've watched a couple people's reactions, Riker Road being one of the ones that kind of emphasize more on the lore than trying to pick apart their lyrics. I could deep dive it. I could go into every song and kind of deep dive it and kind of pick out what each lyric means. So, like, one of the ones that was highlighted for me was in the song Higher, when he talks about, I am granting you more than the debt that I owed. That is a very thing that, if you've ever been in a narcissistic relationship or friendship with someone, that is what you find yourself doing a lot more than most, especially when you love and care for this person. And I can pick out a few people off the top of my head personally who that would apply to in my experiences. But yeah, it's that. It's that in particular. You know, Gethsemane, when he talks about she didn't want to see him naked unless she was pissed, basically. That's an obvious lyric. That's an obvious lyric in itself, but it still undertones a message. It still sends a message there of interpretation, you know. Well, let's be fair, that's a bit more of an obvious one. I don't know why I went for that lyric in particular. You know, Are You Really Okay? As one that stands out to me as well. Even though it's obvious, it's not obvious who it's about. Whether it be about a child or potentially a kid's sibling. I mean, as I mentioned before, me and my partner spent a while talking about Atlantic and how that applies. Is it a death within the family, or is it a death of a partner? And how that comes across, is it, you know, and being, I don't want to say this for the sense of, you know, not everyone can understand the music because of the cultural references, but you can pick up the British undertones within the music, especially in Sundowning. I can't remember what track it is in particular. It's completely gone from me. I've barely... Sundowning is one that I'm not as familiar with compared to Take Me Back to Eden or even in Arcadia. But some of the cultural references to like headlights or pavement and things like that, you know, you can tell very much so. Like when you listen to Atlantic, the feeling that I get whenever I listen to that song is an occasion where he's had to call emergency services in some description to this person, that's whether it be himself or whether it be someone else. And one of the lyrics in that I highlighted more than anything was a pain that they won't understand. You know, all pain is relative. You can't feel the emotions that someone has exactly how they feel it. Everyone feels pain in a very different way, in very different quantities. And you can relate to it. You can empathize with it. You can put yourself in someone else's shoes. And the whole idea of not being able to understand when people say that you wouldn't understand, it's not because of they think that you don't empathize and relate to it. It's the fact that you don't understand exactly how I'm feeling because you can't feel how I'm feeling because you're not me. A slightly different segue into what I'm about to say is you could potentially look at twins. And that is something I would like to explore at some point, but I think a lot of people have explored that already, sort of thing. That's the only takeaway that I can take from that to kind of provide an alternate argument to that point. But there is a lot there. There is a lot there within his lyrics, and a lot there that I identify with and I think about on a regular basis. Rain being, what I can interpret from it is a song about someone coming in and washing away his sins, or washing away his pain, and then disappearing, and then not disappearing, so to speak, but someone's obviously come in and changed his life in some capacity and helped wash away his pain to a degree. And then it rolls straight into Take Me Back to Eden. And I can't remember the lyrics specifically, but there is kind of a comment about loss and losing this person. And then it rolls into Take Me Back to Eden. And it's almost like the aftermath of losing this person. And they were, I think I've already mentioned this before, this was when they were at their most happy, was when they were with this person. But there's a lot of contradiction within the music where, again, Gethsemane being another one, it's the second to last track on the album, and it's kind of an opposite to Take Me Back to Eden. And there's no coincidences with the way that even in Arcadia has been produced, if it creates these kind of polar opposites to songs. So like Gethsemane and Take Me Back to Eden, for example, Look to Windward and Chokehold being polar opposites. If you look at the connotations in which these songs have, Look to Windward is about moving forward, and Chokehold is about being caught in this cycle. And then even in Arcadia, if people haven't picked up on it yet, it's a cycle of an album of itself. Underneath the undertone of the heavy guitars and drums in Infinite Baths, you can hear the 8-bit introduction to Look to Windward. So there's so many, you can have infinite upon infinite upon infinite of different routes that you could go. You create a whole Venn diagram of different things, and it all, you'd end up with so many different fucking circles of things that link and interlink and then separate in polar opposites, and they're actually the same. You take the first tracks from each album. So you've got The Night Does Not Belong to God, Atlantic, Chokehold, Look to Windward. The Night Before God is the calm before the storm. Atlantic is a song about loss, death potentially, or the pain that someone is going through. Chokehold being an entrapment. Look to Windward being, okay, I'm out of that entrapment, how do I move on? So, summarize it. And that's how you could summarize it. There's no coincidences in how these songs have been produced. They're so different, and how you interpret and relate to it. You look at the final tracks of the rest of the albums, I would tell you, but to be honest, I'm struggling to remember every single Sleep Token song off the top of my head. And maybe it's a video that I follow up with in the future and kind of divert off the podcast thing in itself, or move on to, or do it within a podcast. Maybe with someone else, maybe try and get someone to join me on breaking that down. And I know people have already. To be honest, I'm saying this because I haven't seen how other people have interpreted it. I choose to be influenced by my own interpretations of how I perceive the music to be. I watch reaction videos to a degree purely because I'm intrigued, but not to the sense of, it's very easy to let the relativity of other people's interpretations of music affect your own. it's kind of it's hypocritical because you're watching this video now, and if you've made your way through this fucking madness of half an hour long video, then I applaud you for that, because thank you. You know, welcome to the channel if you're new around here. You have just witnessed half an hour of a complete roller coaster of thought, which is what my videos tend to be, especially when it comes to discussing things like this. And the fact that I've managed to do half an hour of straight talking without really fucking up is impressive for me. Because in previous podcasts it's a little bit more difficult because I was talking about a lot more deep core subjects. You know, I can't, to be honest, I wouldn't be able to remember half the things I said unless I watched it back myself. A lot of thoughts just end up being channeled out. And if people can make their way through that, happy fucking days. I've done exactly what I intended to do and given you content for you to consume. All the bottom line is, and to round this video up in a nice little bow, is people are too quick to judge what they don't understand, and it just definitely highlights the lack of understanding that the metal community get, the rock community, and people that suffer with mental health or chronic illnesses. There is a lack of understanding, and as much as we raise awareness, there are still people out there that will dismiss it because a lot of the time it's their own insecurities and anxieties on it. You know, they wouldn't want that to be themselves, so they dismiss that it exists. It does exist, and it's always going to be there, and people have to live with it. You can't ignore it. You can't dismiss it. And whether, you know, people have already highlighted this or not, Vessel and the way he produces his music is that example of these things don't have a face, so why should I? Because it's not about who he is as a person that's important, it's about the music he produces and how it reaches people and how the art is consumed. You know, there's so many different interpretations that you could take away from it, as I've just described with the opening tracks of each album. You know. Yeah, I could keep going around in circles about it for another half an hour, but considering I haven't done this for a while and my voice is starting to get a little bit jarred from it, I'll give you a little quick channel update when I'm here, if you've made it this far. I am going to be coming back to my regular uploading. It's just going to be in a very different capacity, and there's a lot of things that are going to get dropped. The Minecraft server is still staying active. That is a pride and joy of mine that I'll continue to work on. The Call of Duty series will still be active. I'm unsure on how I'm going to continue with FIFA content. And the nostalgic games are still going to be there, and there's still games that I need to complete, like Mortuary Assistant, Five Nights at Freddy's. Horror games are going to be a thing. Phasmophobia may be tweaked. But the statistics don't lie, and if I want to push this channel to where I want it to be, I have to start dropping things and not just flood my channel with content for the hell of it. If some of the videos that I've done previously start cropping up in numbers, then I may look back and try to retweak it. But so I stopped recording properly about 3 weeks ago. 3-4 weeks ago. As I say, a lot of things have happened, but after looking at YouTube Studio today, because this video it's 6 o'clock on the 22nd of May. This video is getting uploaded as soon as I've recorded it. Yeah. I looked at YouTube Studio today and I saw there was a lot of discrepancies within the viewership of what was being viewed and where. I have a few ideas. I had so many ideas and I was trying to push them out and I was trying to just throw past through it all. And I've been doing this now for over 2 years. And to the people that are subscribed and that are stuck around and view these videos, thank you. This isn't going to be uploaded as a podcast. This will be uploaded as an actual video itself. With an actual thumbnail and everything else, because it's kind of a podcasty episode, it's an all-rounder sort of thing. And maybe that's what the podcasts get uploaded like in the future. We'll see. And yeah. Fuck no. Either way, I hope it's gonna be a couple more weeks before I'm back to Full Sail again. That you might see some things within that, depends on what I'm doing, but I hope to come back very soon and start uploading properly. So until then, towards improving mentally every day takes time. Look after yourselves, and I'll see you in the next one. Farewell.